Well, good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you for joining us today as we kick off our Smart Seniors webinar series. Our first webinar today will be our social media and internet safety webinar. So again, I appreciate you joining us. My name is Anna Ford, and I am the marketing manager at Covenant Woods. I'm joined today by Jason Neiman and Matt Winkleman from Good Brand Company, and they are our marketing agency that we work with, and excited to have them teach us a little bit about social media and internet safety and how we can keep ourselves safe as we use all of our different devices. For those of you who are not familiar with Covenant Woods, we are a continuing care retirement community located in Mechanicsville, Virginia. We are for seniors and adults who are 62 years of age and older. We help you to right-size your living and provide continuum of care as you need it. But I think what sets us apart from other communities is all of our green space. We are surrounded by protected land from the Chesapeake Bay Watershed Act. We also have a farm to table program, which you'll learn more about in our next webinar. And we have a 135-year tradition of taking care of seniors. So at the end of the webinar today, you will have an opportunity to ask questions about what you've heard, but also to ask questions about Covenant Woods and learn a little more about who we are and how you can come for a visit. So I encourage you to sit back and enjoy the webinar, and we'll get back together at the end.
Thank you, Anna. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Matt, we good with audio? Everything's good, tight?
Sounds good.
Great. My name is Jason Neiman, and my partner today is Matthew Winkleman, and we'll be talking today and giving you a little bit of background on some social media and internet safety, and hopefully you'll get a lot out of today. A couple things that I wanted to mention before we get started. There is a Q&A button down at the bottom of your Zoom window. Feel free, if at any point you want to ask a question, you can type a question in there and it will pop up. We'll do our best to answer it throughout the webinar. If not, we'll get to it at the end. So you can, ask a question there. Sometimes we'll type the answer back to you. Sometimes we'll actually verbalize it and talk back through there. And then we will be at a different point, we'll be throwing up a poll for you all once we get to our social media section, and you'll be able to select the different social medias that you use. So we'll be doing that a little bit later as well. All right.
All right. So let me introduce you to what we're going to talk about today. We're going to spend some time talking about general internet safety. That's everything from just being smart about your passwords, how you connect to the internet, and how you get around in the internet. So we'll take a look at that to start. From there, we'll move on to social media, and we certainly hear plenty about social media these days. So we have a lot to talk about there, everything from how much social media is used, but also how to use social media smartly. So we'll take a look at that. And then we'll wrap it up with some news and information. Take a look at how we view news on the internet today and some things to be aware of to make sure that you're actually looking at the real news when you check it out. And at the end of that segment, we will have some time available to answer any questions that you might have, whether related to this or related to the community.
Great. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. One thing we like to always start with in this particular presentation is that safety is not overrated. We are very careful to make sure that your safety as it pertains to being on the internet and being on social media is of utmost importance. And so what we're going to try to share with you today is how to be safe. But we also want to make the point that you don't really have to be afraid of the internet. And you don't have to be afraid of social media. If you get educated about it and you learn the right ways to approach it and you learn the right ways to interact with it, it can be a very powerful platform. You can get great information. You can communicate with people really effectively. And whether you're on your phone or your tablet or your computer or your smart TV, or even in your vehicle these days that are all connected to the internet, or your watch for that matter, you'll have a great opportunity to communicate and use those devices without being afraid of them and without worrying about if you're being safe or not. So where we'd like to start, because this sort of sets the tone for the rest of the presentation, is talking about passwords. We realize that if we could figure out the password thing, boy, we'd all be rich people, that's for sure. But passwords are definitely one of the most difficult things to kind of wrap your head around and make sure that you remember them and use them appropriately. So what we like to do is we like to kind of kick it off with the idea of using a piece of software to manage your passwords to make it a little bit easier. So there's a piece of software, many pieces of software that actually help you manage your passwords, and they're called password managers. We've put a few up here on the screen. These are some of the more reputable firms that make them: OneLogin, 1Password, Dashlane, LastPass, and Keeper. And what these allow you to do is to actually have on all of your devices, your phone, your computer, your tablet, no matter where you're at, you have access to all of your passwords. So you're not keeping those little notebooks next to your remote control or your iPad or your phone. These really reside on those devices. And the best part of that is that you have access to those using one password, one single password, and it gives you access to all of the rest of your passwords. And so here's an example of what that might look like on your computer. It shows you a lock screen here, and it gives you all of the ability to save information on all of these types of things, everything from a login on a website to a credit card or a document or a bank account, and then even things like your driver's license to have that information in your system. And all you have to do is open up the application, either on your computer or your phone or tablet. You enter your master password, which is your single password that you have to remember. And then what happens is it gives you access to all of the different accounts that you have within your library. And so you'll see here, this is one for T-Mobile. And so my username just so happens to be my phone number. And then you'll also see here that my password is not being shown because you actually have to click on it to get the actual password to show. Obviously, we're not going to show that today. But it also gives you the ability to, put the website that it's attached to and those types of things. The other nice thing about this is it also allows you to create passwords for sites that are much more secure. So it'll allow you to go in and say, I want you to generate a password for me for the T-Mobile site. And it will actually give me a very random, very scrambled password that I can copy and paste directly into the browser window that I'm in or on your phone, whichever makes sense to you. So it's a really helpful tool, and it really makes life a little bit more simple. One of the other things that I kind of mentioned earlier is it also allows you to put your information in for credit cards. And so if for some reason you lose your wallet or your purse or you misplace it or leave your card behind, it has all of the information for those credit cards, but it also has the bank information in there that you put in so that you can call them and cancel the card or put a pause on it or whatever it might be. And then it gives you other things like the security code, the interest rates, all those kinds of things that you have. So not only does it store passwords for you, but it also has an ability for you to store some other really sensitive documents. Now, the beauty of this is not only are you having to log into your 1Password account, but you're also having to log into your phone or your computer before you get to this. So before you get to this, you actually have to get through 2 levels of password security to get to this. So on your phone, you might use your finger or your face or a PIN code. And then you get into the application, you open the application, you have to put your master password. So if somebody were to find one of your devices, you're not going to be compromised, which is great. And that leads us to biometric security, which is very similar, but in a different way. So what biometrics does is it allows a body part or something of your own, your facial scan or anything like that. It allows that to be your security code. So for most importantly, at this point, your phone, if you have the ability to turn on facial recognition or use your fingerprint as your security measure, we certainly recommend that. And that definitely gives you the ability to be a little bit more secure in the way that you have access to your phone. So that gives you two ways in case you forget your password or something like that. And then the last thing that we like to talk about when it comes to the security and password type of things is payment security. And we say with biometric security, it's always really good to be able to use that when you're doing things like paying online, using Apple Pay or Google Pay or Samsung Pay at a retailer, or even sending financial information back and forth, like you have to pay somebody via PayPal or Venmo or Zelle, some of those other services where you're transferring money from one of your accounts to someone else's account. And so by using your fingerprint or your facial recognition, it's super helpful and it gives you a lot of security in that realm. Some of those sites you may already have some experience with. You'll see PayPal on the left, Venmo in the middle, and Zelle. These allow you to make person-to-person cash transfers. So you can, I could bring up Matt's account, tell him I want to send him $20, send it off. It'll vary. Would you like that, Matt? Would that be good?
Feel free.
All right. We'll go ahead and scan my fingerprint or use my facial recognition. It approves it, and then it goes off. So super secure. And then the last thing I want to talk about is at merchants. And, a lot of people are a little bit worried or scared to use their phone for payments. But one thing that we will tell you is using your phone for payment is actually much more secure than handing over your credit card or using your debit card. Those devices have two-factor authentication, which means you have to use some level of biometrics, either your finger or your facial scan, to activate that payment. And then in addition to that, you have to use a passcode to get into your phone, which is great. So that's two levels. But then also it doesn't transfer your credit card numbers. It doesn't show your name. It doesn't show you the security code on those cards. And so you have much less interaction of somebody picking up those numbers. So your phone will transfer over a very random number that's only for that one transaction and not tied to your credit cards. So this can be a very secure way of doing business into the future. And there are a lot of merchants right now that actually use it. You'll see these logos either on the countertops where you're at, or you'll see them on the front doors of the different merchants that you go to. And so most people are headed this way, and it'll be much easier as time goes on to be able to pay with your phone.
All right, so let's talk about connecting to the actual internet itself, whether it's through your phone, your tablet, your computer. There are multiple different ways in which you actually make that connection to the internet. So the first way that we make a connection to the internet, Jason, is your home connection. So at home, you typically have either a Wi-Fi that's been created in your home, or you're actually hardwired from your router or your modem into your computer, and that's how you connect to the internet. This connection between your home and the internet is typically very secure because it is your own network. So it does offer good security if you're doing something like going to visit like your bank website or something like that, or if you have to put personal information into a site or something along those lines. It's a good place to do that because typically it is a secure connection. One thing I will say is with your home connection, when you're talking about Wi-Fi, you do want to make sure that the Wi-Fi password that you have set up for your Wi-Fi is a good password, because you don't want to make it easy for someone to get in. So you want to make sure that your Wi-Fi is secured. But if your Wi-Fi is secured, your home connection is a good way to connect to the internet because it is secure and it is typically a faster way to connect. Another way that you can connect is directly through your mobile device. And when we're talking about your mobile device connection, we're talking about using cellular data. Cellular data through whoever your provider is. Typically it's like Verizon, T-Mobile, something like that, AT&T. Typically they have a set amount of data that you can use each month. And if you go over that, you have to pay overage fees. for the data that you've used. So one of the downsides of it is that typically it's limited unless you have an unlimited plan. It is, however, very secure. So your mobile connection through your phone, when you're just connecting directly through cellular data through your phone, is very secure. It's a good way to connect. So if you have to, if you're putting, checking on your bank account information, if you're putting sensitive information in through your phone, for example, or your tablet, if it has cellular data, those are typically very secure. A downside to it is that your mobile connection a lot of times is slower than the connection that you would have through the internet in your home, for example. However, that is changing. I'm sure you've heard of the term 5G or 4G. 5G is the type of mobile connection that is coming out, rolling out now. And as that connection has a larger footprint, it's available in more areas, you're going to see that actually have much faster internet connection speeds. So the speeds through 5G, for example, with a phone coming out this year or in the next couple of years that has 5G, those speeds may approach or even pass the speeds that you can get in your home. But that is a technology that's coming out, rolling out now. And in fact, right now, I believe Apple is releasing their new phones for the year. And I think they're talking about all their phones now have 5G from what I've seen on my watch. So that tells me that we're definitely going towards that 5G connection where the speeds really are much faster. Lastly, I want to talk a little bit about public Wi-Fi. So public Wi-Fi is when you go to somewhere like Starbucks or the airport, or you used to go to the airport, and they have these public Wi-Fi's available to you. So you pull up your phone, you pull up your computer, your tablet, and it says, do you want to connect to this network? That's an open public Wi-Fi network. The nice thing about it is it typically offers you a connection that sometimes is fast, but it is not secure. So if you're on a public Wi-Fi, I would not be checking on bank statements. I would not be putting in personal information because it's simply not as secure as either using cellular data or using your home network. But it is available in whatever area you are at a decent speed typically. So it's fine for doing things like browsing the news or something like that. But I wouldn't use it to put any type of secure information into it. Now, there are lots of different ways that you can connect to the internet once you are either using a Wi-Fi network or you're using cellular data. I'm sure many of these are going to look familiar to you. These are all different types of browsers that are available to you. So all the way on the left, we have Chrome, we've got Explorer, Firefox, Opera, and Safari all the way on the right, which you've probably seen if you use any sort of Mac device. They all have positives and negatives to them, but a lot of it comes down to what you feel comfortable with. I'd recommend you can download these browsers from their sites and you can try them out for yourself to see which one fits you and works well for you. If you've used Safari through like an iPhone or through a Mac, you may be very familiar with that. The most used one in the world is Chrome, which is the one all the way on the left. So these are all very popular and available ways to browse the internet. One thing that you do want to keep in mind when you are going onto the internet is making sure that the sites that you are visiting are secure. And what I mean by secure is up here on the screen, you can see we have an HTTP versus an HTTPS. That extra S on the end means that it is a secure connection between you and the website that you're visiting. Now, most of the websites that you're going to visit these days are secure. That's the direction that the internet is going. That's the direction that, for example, Google, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with, but if you Google something on the internet, and you go visit a website, if it's not a secure website, Google will actually penalize that website, and it will have it show lower on the listing when you search for something through Google. So it makes a lot of sense for these websites to make sure that they have a secure website for you. If you visit a website and it does not have that S, or in this picture you can see it's got a little green lock and it says secure. If you don't see a lock, if it doesn't say secure, if it doesn't have the S, or if it says unsecure, or has a big red warning sign on it, depending on the browser that you're using, do not put sensitive information into that website because they haven't taken the steps necessary to make sure that your information is secure. So you just want to take a look when you go visit a website and make sure that it does have that secure symbol next to it.
Great. Okay, we're going to shift a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about tracking. And if you pay attention to the news and different sources, a lot of people are going to really sort of hype up the idea that everybody's tracking you everywhere you go on your phone, and it's really important to not be tracked. And so while we think that that is a very good, appropriate way to look at this, we also think that there are some good ways and beneficial things that you do get from tracking that do help you out on a daily basis. So we'll talk about the good and the bad here in just a second. So let's talk about the benefits, which is the good piece. Benefits are, if let's say that you're getting ready to get in your vehicle and you're on your way home and you're not exactly sure what the best way would be home, or you want to dodge the heaviest traffic. One of the things that is a benefit of having your location tracking on is having your GPS enabled. So it could be Google Maps if you use that. It could be Apple Maps or Waze, whatever it is that you use. And so that's where the location tracking on your phone actually becomes a benefit for you. One of the other things that we use in my family is, we all use tracking to just allow our other family members to locate us and know where we're at. And so that's really great. A lot of parents use this when, their kids are at school or they've gone for a play date or something like that. It's a very good thing for us to be able to have access to. So as long as that data is anonymous and you're not sending personal data with tracking, you're in good shape and you shouldn't be worried about that too much. But if you are concerned and you want to turn your tracking off, there's a few ways that you can do it. And depending on the phone type that you have, the operating system on your phone that you have, whether it be Android or iOS, which is on an Apple device, there are ways to go in and customize these settings. So in this particular case, what I'm showing you here is this is an iPhone, and you'll see that within privacy under settings, there's a section called location services. You can turn this off for everything altogether, or you can go specifically into each particular application that's loaded, and you can make customized differences on each one. And what that does is it gives you the ability to go in, and this particular app that I'm showing you here is Facebook. And so what I'm saying is I will allow Facebook to access my location while I'm using the app. You usually get three options within this. You get, I don't ever want this app to use my location. I will allow this app to use my location while I'm using it, or I'm always willing to give access. So on those GPS programs, Google Maps, any of your mapping, things like that, it's always okay to do the always as long as you're comfortable with that. But for everything else, whether it be social media or Uber Eats or whatever you might be using, Instacart, just using the location services while the app is running is probably the best case scenario. And then if there are certain apps, like there are note-taking apps or, other types of things that you may be using on your phone, you may want to set those to never. And then if you have to use that for some reason, you could always turn it back on. But you do have the ability to go in and set your phone to decide which location services for each app you have the access to.
All right. let's shift gears a little bit and let's talk about something that I know all of you have heard of before, which is email scams. So we're going to talk about email scams, and we're going to talk about phishing. And I don't mean the kind of phishing off the dock, obviously, because we're looking at a PH here. But this type of phishing is a little different in the fact that you really are the fish, and they're going after your information. What they are trying to do is to get you to go to a site and put in your information, your sensitive information, so that they can then use that information to access other sites that you have secured. So we're going to take a look at an example of what would be a phishing attempt, and we can take a look at how you can help identify these so that you don't find yourself a victim of phishing. So here on this one, this is an actual fake email, a phishing attempt email. And there's a couple different things here we can see that are warning signs that this isn't a real email. So the first thing that we have up here is the name. So you see there on the top left, it says PayPal. But if you look at the actual address of where this came from, you can see it isn't PayPal. It's web-secured1@inc.payone.com. That's not PayPal. So that's my first warning sign that this is not a legitimate email. The second piece of this that tells me this isn't a legitimate email is it says we're investigating a PayPal payment reversal with a made-up case ID number. Now, if I didn't make a PayPal payment, or I have no idea what it's talking about, that right there is going to be a warning as well that this isn't a real email. So that's the second thing I can look for. The third is either spelling errors or grammatical errors. A lot of times these types of emails come from folks who do not speak English as a first language. And if that's the case, then they sometimes make mistakes grammatically or with spelling. So there's actually two in that line. You can see informations doesn't make sense. And the exclamation point over there is spaced at the end, which would be weird. That would have been picked up if it was a real email. The third thing that I see down here is that it doesn't have my name. So if this is something that is as specific as a PayPal payment reversal, then they should know my name and they should be able to put my name on this. So that's telling me right there, because there's no name there, that could possibly be fake. And then fourth here, it says, thank you for signing up for PayPal. Well, a second ago, you were talking about a payment reversal. I may not use PayPal, or I didn't just sign up for PayPal. So it doesn't make sense that I'd be receiving this email right now. Okay, so they're going to put in here all this information to try to get you to click on a link inside of the email. Then in this example, they have this button here that says verify your account. Now, if I was to click on that link, it's going to take me to a website that's going to look really nice, and it's going to look a lot like PayPal. And the first thing it's going to do is ask me for either my social security number or a password to PayPal. If I put that information in there, then I have now given these people my sensitive information, which they will turn around and try to use at the real PayPal account or at other areas such as my bank or things like that, because they know most people use the same passwords for multiple different areas. So they're going to attempt to use your information on multiple different areas. So
Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. You dropped out right when you talked about what happens when you click on this link. Can you just kind of go through that first part one more time?
Absolutely. So when you click on that link, it's going to take you to a website that's going to look really nice, and it's going to look very much like the real PayPal account, the real PayPal website. And the first thing they're going to do is ask you for your information. So it's going to ask you for sensitive information about you. It's going to ask for your username or your password, which they will then use to try to get into other websites, because they know people use the same passwords for multiple sites.
Great. Thank you.
Sure. All right. So now let's talk a little bit about social media, because I know a lot of people are interested in social media, and it is a huge part of the internet today. And I like to say what social media does is it makes the world smaller. So the world is getting smaller every day with all these different types of social media that are out there. So let's take a look at that. Here we have an example of 6 different social media types. So we've got Snapchat, we've got WhatsApp, we've got Facebook, which I'm sure you're familiar with, we've got TikTok, we've got Instagram, and we've got Twitter. I'm going to ask Jason to go ahead and put up our poll for the day. You're going to see a poll pop up on your screen, and it's going to allow you to answer a couple questions. What I'd like to know is, what social media platforms do you typically use? And while you're answering that question, I am going to tell you a little story about TikTok. So I don't know if you've seen, but recently there was an individual who was driving to work and their truck broke down. They still need to get to work, obviously, and they happened to have a skateboard in their truck. So what this gentleman did is he grabbed his skateboard, and he also, by the way, happened to have a bottle of cranberry juice with him. So he hopped on his skateboard and he started recording a video on TikTok of him singing a Fleetwood Mac song. Okay, so this is just a video of him going down the road with the Fleetwood Mac song in the background and him drinking out of this big bottle of cranberry juice. Well, this video went viral, and within a matter of just a couple weeks, it had 50 million views. So 50 million times that video was viewed, just of this guy going to work because his truck broke down on a skateboard. And to give you an idea of how big of an impact something like social media can have, the cranberry juice that he was drinking happened to be Ocean Spray. Well, Ocean Spray sent him a new truck just because of the marketing that they got out of his video. And not only that, but it reached Fleetwood Mac, and they did a interpretation of his video to their song because they loved it so much. And he has now actually quit his job and is a social media influencer for a living now, all because of one video that he put out there that reached 50 million people. So let's see what we have here. So this is interesting. Taking a look at social media, I see we've got some Facebook, some Instagram, and we have a lot of YouTube users. So we're going to take a look in a little bit here. We're going to take a look at the usage of these across the world and just in general, and we can see how that aligns to what's typically used out there today. So to give you an idea of how big social media really is, there are 3.5 billion social media users, which is 45% of the world's population. 3.5 billion users use social media. That is not a small number of people. So obviously it's going to have a large influence. Taking a look at users by generation, you can see that millennials, 90% of them use social media in one way, shape, or form. So that means 9 out of 10 millennials use social media. So we're talking about people from about 1980, 1981 to 1986. Gen X, which I fit into, 77% of people that fall into Gen X, which is 65 to about 1965 to about 1980. They fit into that, and 77% of them use social media. And baby boomers, almost 50% of baby boomers use social media. And by the way, that number is continuing to go up for baby boomers as more and more join different social media platforms. But not only do a lot of people use social media, but they spend an average of 3 hours per day on a social network. So that gives you an idea of just how much of an impact social media has on the way we interact with the world. So what are the most used social platforms? Well, a lot of folks said that they used YouTube, and you can see YouTube is the second largest social media platform that exists today. Facebook is the largest, and Facebook has been the largest for quite a while now. It's the big boy. It has more people use Facebook than anything else. The interesting thing here, the other one that someone mentioned on there was Instagram. The interesting thing is Instagram is owned by Facebook. So Facebook not only is Facebook, but Facebook is also Instagram. The other ones that we talked about, WhatsApp, which is a way of communicating with other individuals directly. That has a very large user base, and that a lot of that is international. TikTok is probably the fastest growing social media platform today. So it's got 800 million users right now, but that's growing. That is growing fast. And then some others you may have been familiar with, Reddit, Snapchat has sort of plateaued a little bit. And then you have Twitter at the bottom, which I'm sure many of you have heard of or see referenced frequently, especially because of the president. Big Twitter user. Like I mentioned before, Facebook is the market leader. 68% of US adults are Facebook users. So the messaging that goes out on Facebook is going out to 70% of the adult population in the United States. There's a huge number of people that use Facebook. What I like to say is scandals continue, but so does growth for Facebook. So you see a lot of news about Facebook. You see that a lot of times Congress is talking about Facebook. Do they have too much power? Do they have too much influence? Are they doing the right things when it comes to their policies around advertising and things like that? So we continue to see that. But what you have to keep in mind is Facebook is still growing. It is still the largest platform. And regardless of all that, it's still very heavily used. But Facebook is also a great way to interact with others. So if it's used appropriately, Facebook can be wonderful. In terms of some other statistics around Facebook, more women use Facebook than men. It's true in my family. I don't use it much, but my wife does. And also, a very interesting fact is those in the 50 to 65 plus range are the fastest growing segment of Facebook users. So a lot of times with grandkids or keeping up with the family or just interacting with family and friends, those statistics have continued to go up for that age group in terms of using Facebook. To give you an idea, like I mentioned before, 2.7 billion users, but that's monthly active Facebook users. That means 2.7 billion people actively use Facebook monthly. That is a enormous number of people that use Facebook.
Absolutely.
That makes you go, wow.
Yeah, that's a lot. Okay, so let's talk about what the social networks do with your information. And let's keep in mind that the whole reason that they're able to do this is because they don't really ask you to pay for their services. So they have to somehow monetize their platforms. And the way that they do that is they get information about you as a user, and then they pass that along to other networks, or they might pass that along to advertisers in order to target you for specific advertising campaigns and marketing reasons. So here are the things that different social medias use, and Facebook uses the majority of these, just as an example. But what they track are things like, where are you going? So if you do have your location services turned on, they'll kind of take a look at your geography patterns. Where do you live, first and foremost? They look at where you travel to. They look at the stores that you visit, and they basically get data that they can mine and say, here's some very valuable data that marketing people and advertisers want to know, including them. They also look at the websites that you visit. When you click links within a post or something like that, or a link that's been sent to you via messaging, they'll they'll be able to track where that link click goes to. And they'll know that, hey, you know, these people really like Home Depot. And so they go there on a pretty regular basis directly from our social media. They look at things like financial status. And not only do they look at your purchases and things like that that you're making online through their platforms, but they also pull data from companies like Experian and the credit bureaus. And what that does is it gives them the ability to cross-reference your name and location along with the data that they can purchase legally to basically figure out what socioeconomic status you might have and what financial status you currently have. They also look at things like status updates. When you post updates on your posts, they're looking at those and figuring out different ways to reach you and different ways to make their product more attractive to you. They also look at apps that you install. So if Matt mentioned earlier that if you're a Facebook user, you may get, if you don't have Instagram loaded on your phone, it may say, hey, we noticed you're a Facebook user. You may want to download and install Instagram. So it will look at that and it will make recommendations based on that. There was actually a study done, and this is the How You Feel piece. There was actually a study done where they fed specific people negative news stories over the course of a 2-week period. And over that course of a 2-week period, what they were able to do is they were able to study and see if that made an impact on the types of posts and the emotions that the people were having. Now, since that was brought out, they're not really allowed to do that anymore because it's looking very bad for them from a PR standpoint. But they were doing during studies like this. You know, they're also looking at the types of political posts that you click on. They're also looking at things, you know, do these posts make you angry? Do they make you do other things? And that becomes valuable for people that are purchasing this data. And then the other thing that they really track is your life moments. They're going to track things like when you graduated high school, when you graduated college, when you started a new job, when you've had a new child, when you got married, if there's a birthday in your family. And it's going to remind you of those things, but it's also going to keep track of those things and be able to deliver different types of offers and different things to you based on that. One of the other things you may see are those moments where you log into Facebook and it says, hey, here's a photo from 3 years ago. We thought you might like it and be interested because you got a lot of likes on that one. And so there's a lot of things that they're doing in the background that these computers, the automation is doing, that's basically just keeping track of data. Now, is any of this data really, you know, really evil and getting to you in ways that can be hurtful? In some cases they can, but for the most part, they're legitimately using the information that's public to be able to deliver better information to you. That's what most of the social media companies are doing. But you have to be careful with how much personal information you are actually putting out there. The other things that you're going to see through these social media platforms are things like friend requests. And one of the things that you'll see that usually is a scam is, let's say that you're friends with somebody on social media, on Facebook, and you already know that you're friends with them and you've interacted in the past. And then all of a sudden you get another request from that same exact person, same photo, same name and everything. That's usually not that actual person. That's usually a scammer that's trying to basically weed out information. So before you accept a friend request, make sure that it's legitimate and make sure that you aren't already friends with that person and that they haven't been compromised. Also, you may want to set it up so that only friends of friends can actually make friend requests to you. So there's a way in the back end to go in your security settings, and we will talk about that in a second, on how to lock that down and get access to who has access to your information and who can even see you on the back end. And so you have to really be careful of those scammers and make sure that they're not trying to get further information from you than you want to give. So here's a little bit of a preview on how to go into your settings. So when you're in Facebook in particular, if you click on your settings, you'll actually go into a friends area here. And you'll see within the friends, there's actually a settings button right here, which is this little 3-dot button. And down here, you're going to see all friends, recently added, birthdays, work, high school, all those things that are there. If you click on edit privacy, it's actually going to take you to something that looks something like this. And with those friends, you're going to say who can see your friend list. And then here is the information on where you can change that. You can click that and say, all I want is for my friends to be able to see who's in my list, who I'm friends with. You can also change this to friends of friends. You can change it to nobody. You can change it to the public, which we don't recommend you to do for anything. You can also have information there that people are able to look at that says who can see the people and pages that you follow. So in this particular case, I have this set up for friends of friends, not just friends. And then I did this on purpose just to show you, but who can see your followers on your timeline? And in this particular case, it's actually the whole public. So anybody that's on Facebook that has an account can see that. We don't recommend this on anything really, unless you're an influencer or you're trying to get a lot of people that you don't know to see the things that you're looking at or that you're promoting. So be very careful about your privacy. Go into the settings on your social media platforms and try to lock down your settings as much as possible so that you're not giving away a bunch of information. This next piece is something that seems reasonable, but people do it all the time. For those of you that are on the webinar, I would ask you a question if you were in person, and that would be, how many of you, when you go on vacation or leave your home for any length of time, put a sign out in front of your house that says, hey, I'm going out of town for 2 weeks? And I'm hoping that the answer for that would be no, we don't do that. And so same thing applies when you're on social media. If you're secure on social media and you're only sharing this with friends, this may be appropriate. But if you're not, and there are some public availability, when you say I'm going out of town for 2 weeks, and if you have opened up to a scammer or if you're public and people are able to see your profile, then this is going out to the masses, and I'm not sure anybody wants regular people that you don't know knowing that you're going out of town for 2 weeks. So it's very important to pay attention to who you're placing this. The other things you can do is you could be a little bit more open on this, on posting something, and then be more secure when you actually, before you post it, because you can make a change to this as you make your posts. But in general, it's good not to post things like this to keep yourself from getting in trouble there.
Well, let's take a look at news and information. Good old fake news. I love this. It was shared on Facebook, so it must be true. I hear all the time from people, hey, did you know this happened? Did you know this is what's going on? I'm like, well, where did you get that information? Well, I saw it on Facebook. That is not a good enough source for me to believe it to be true. Okay, so I want to know if I'm looking at a legitimate news source or if it's just someone telling me the earth is flat. So let's take a look at some ways that you can tell the difference between real news and fake news. One of the big things that you can do with social media platforms, especially ones like Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, is you can make sure that you're following legitimate sources. So in this example, we have 3 Donald Trumps. We were just searching for Donald Trump, and we want to make sure that we're following the actual Donald Trump. We don't want an imposter or fake information or something like that. So you can see next to his name here, there's a little check mark. Now that check mark means that he has been verified, that is the actual true individual. So that Donald Trump official at the bottom, we know is not the real Donald Trump because it doesn't have a check mark next to it that tells us that it has been verified. This also happens with pages as well. We can look at the next page. You can see here when you're looking for news sources, for example, we're just bringing up CNN here. We know that this is the real CNN page because it has that verified link next to it. So whenever there's information or sources that has a large following, someone like Twitter, someone like Facebook, someone like YouTube, will make sure that they verify that it is the correct source of the information. So that's important to look for. The other thing to think about is when you're just searching on the web itself, or if you've clicked on a link or something like that to a news source, taking a look at the actual address of the website that you're visiting. Now these two sites, and by the way, this was real, these two sites look very, very similar, and they look like they're posting legitimate news. However, that one on the top is a fake website. And we know it's fake because you can look at the URL or the web address of that site. You can see it right there, abcnews.com.co. That extra .co at the end is telling me that is not the real ABC News site. Underneath that, you can see we know this is the real ABC News site because it's abcnews.com. So we know that that's the right one. So when you are going to these different websites, you want to make sure that you're hitting the right one. If you're looking for something that has a large following base, like an ABC News or a CNN or a Fox News or a BBC or something like that, if you Google it, typically the results that are going to come up at the top are going to be the real sites, because someone like Google or someone like Bing, if you use that for searching, wants to make sure that these fake sites aren't being used. So just be careful when you're looking at them to make sure that you're on the real website. Let's talk a little bit about ads versus posts. This is something that has become very popular in websites today, and right here we're talking about Facebook in particular. But here we have a post, and this is Blakeney Shopping Centers. They've put some information out. You have 2 great excuses to visit Pandora this week. They've got some content, some information out there. And this is designed to go out to the people that follow them so that they make sure that they get the information so they know what's going on. So that's a post. At the same time, you'll see things like this. Now this looks very much like a post. However, it isn't. This is actually an ad. And the way that I know it's an ad, a couple different things. It says suggested post, and then underneath that it says sponsored. If I see sponsored or I see suggested post, that tells me that Dream Cloud Sleep has paid Facebook to show me this ad. And what Facebook does is they want to make sure that these ads go out to the people that they think are going to be most interested in it. So all that information that Jason was talking about them collecting and all that kind of stuff, those demographics are used to show you the ads that they think are going to be most interesting to you or that have the greatest chance of you clicking on. So that's how you can kind of tell the difference between an ad and a post at Facebook. But it goes beyond just ads and posts in something like Facebook or on social media. And by the way, that's the same for multiple different social media sites. Clickbait is also another way that they try to get you to click on ads. So here in this example, we're looking at just a typical website, and this is similar for lots of different websites out there. The ad, which is the top one here, looks almost identical to the second one with one small difference. The small difference is it says sponsored in light gray, small font at the top of this post or of this ad. And that's telling me that that is an ad that has been paid for so that they could get that spot there. Now they try to mix them in between real news stories all around the page, wherever they think they can get the most influence with you who are viewing the site, but they want to get it to try to get you to click on it. Also, a lot of times with these, they're going to put headlines that are going to be like partial, that are going to make you want to click on it, to try to get you to click on something interesting so that you can click on it. It looks like Jason's going to take a look at these for us. So you can see right here, right under the top, you've got Celebrity Women's Health, which is a news story, and then the next one down is an ad. And it says it's an ad. The only way you know it's an ad is it says ad in that little gray box right there at the corner. But everything else about it looks just like a normal news story. So they're going to put those inside of your of the listings of the news stories. So that's something to be aware of. When you see that, take a look at that. Look for those little suggested or ads or sponsored. That tells you that those are ads that someone has paid for to get those on your page. All right.
Okay, so we've gone over quite a bit today. And if there are any questions that you would like to type in the Q&A section, we're more than happy to answer those questions, or if there's any other info that you want to talk about. But what I'm going to do is, while you're doing that, if you do have any questions, I'm going to go into kind of a review of what we've talked about today. The first piece is being smart. Don't be afraid of the internet and social media. Wholeheartedly embrace those things. They're going to be very good and valuable for you to gain information and learn about different things in the world. It is becoming a smaller world that we live in because of the internet and the ability to connect with people. But be smart about it. Make sure you educate yourself. And you've just obviously taken the first step of that by joining us on this great webinar. Make sure that your passwords are different for every website that you visit. Make sure that your passwords are hard to crack. And if you can, go ahead and take a look at a password manager and use that, like a 1Password or a LastPass. Make sure that when you're connecting to the internet, you know where you're connected and the types of things that you want to be able to do. So if you're on public Wi-Fi, for instance, don't go to your bank or anywhere that you're putting in sensitive information. Make sure that you're using a good web browser, one that you feel comfortable with. Make sure that you're very careful about clicking on things in an email. For instance, that PayPal one that Matt was showing you earlier, instead of clicking on the link in the email, if you think that it's possible that it's a legitimate email, just go to your web browser, type in paypal.com, and then log in with your login information. Log in with your login information, and then you know you've gone to the right website because you've actually physically put in paypal.com, and see if whatever it is that you're getting an email for is legitimate. Know that you are being tracked, but also know that you have some control over that. You can decide what you want, how you want to be tracked, and where you want to be tracked. Within social media, obviously, it's a large population of people that are using this, so you're not alone in your concerns about it, but you're also not alone in your use of it and the ability to connect with other people. Make sure that you know your settings. You turn on the privacy settings that you want to make sure that your privacy is set to a place that you feel comfortable at. Be careful about sharing information that you put on social media. You don't want to put anything in there that might be able to give away something that you don't want to. Know that you're being tracked personally and they're taking information from you, so you have to be careful about how specific you're getting with that, and then make sure that your interactions with other people are legitimate and you're not friending somebody that obviously is impersonating someone else. Then within news and information, know where you are. Make sure that you're on the right websites. Make sure that you're on if you are on social media and you're looking at somebody, making sure that they're legitimate, making sure that those people that you're following or listening to are verified based on the service that you're looking from. Always make sure that you can tell the difference between ads and posts, posts from different places that give you information versus the ads that are paid for. And then that last piece that we were just showing on Yahoo there about clickbait, whether they're trying to get you to click on an ad as it mixes in with the regular news stories. We do have a good question that just came through. It says, where does email fit into the social media discussion, and how safe is email? That is a great question, and I'd love to address it. Email is one of the least secure forms of communication on the internet, partially because the information is going over a very unsecure network. There are some email software programs that are very secure, but you never want to send anything over email that you wouldn't want to have generally available in the public. For instance, Sometimes people will ask you for credit card information over an email. Our recommendation is to not give any credit card information over email because it's not being transferred on a secure network. So we don't recommend that. We also don't recommend putting in things like your social security number or providing birth dates over email. The other thing that you should be very careful of are attachments that are being emailed. So as an example, if someone emails you a document that has personal information on it, like a credit form, please do not take the credit form, fill it out, scan it, or fill it out on your computer, and then send it back via email. Because what will happen is, yeah, it was blank on the way in, but when you send it back out, that information is being transferred over an unsecure network. So that means that if somebody is spying on the email network, they will have access to that, and it is not secure. So it's very important that email is only used for communication and not for sending anything secure.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to that, Jason, too, is if someone is looking for a program that does provide very, very secure email, an example of that might be Proton Mail. That would be a good example of one that you can use if you do have to send very sensitive information through email. You can use something like Proton Mail.
Great. Some of the other questions that we get asked on a regular basis, well, I'll let you cover a few of them, Matt, because I know we've talked about these in other seminars we've done.
Let's see. What haven't we covered?
Did I stump you?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm trying to think if there's something we haven't covered here.
Oh, I know one we get every once in a while, and I'll tell you, I'll show you actually instead of telling you. So I'm going to open up Safari here. This is Safari, so this is just another web browser. And interestingly, what I see a lot is, in many cases, this page will be everybody's homepage, which is Google, right? Everybody's usually familiar with that. And so what happens, interestingly, is that people will say, oh, well, I want to go to a website. So I want to go to, and let's say it's Pottery Barn. Instead of typing up here in the web address area, potterybarn.com, whoops, if I can type, potterybarn.com, and just clicking potterybarn.com and knowing that I'm going directly to Pottery Barn, the website, what people will do is they'll go to their homepage, which is google.com in many cases, and they'll type it here. Oop, and I even typed it wrong there. So it will look like this. So then what happens is you get all of these different links. Now, Pottery Barn is pretty legitimate source, so all of the major links are usually accurate. But in some cases, if you type in something in Google, you're just getting search results. So when you're getting a search result, the top search result, if you'll see here, and I'm going to blow this up, is an ad. And what most people will do is they'll type google.com, click that in there, and then they'll click on the ad itself. Well, in some cases, Pottery Barn isn't even the first ad that pops up. It might be a competitor. So if you want to go specifically to a specific site and you want to be sure that you're going to that site, don't go through Google. Make sure that you go up to your address bar at the top of your web browser and use that and type in the actual address. So that's something we've gotten asked in the past is, well, is it any different to type it in here as opposed to on the Google homepage? Do you go anyplace different? And the answer is yes, you do. Okay. Okay. So I don't see any other questions coming through, so I'm going to turn it back over to Anna. Thank you very much for everybody's time today. We appreciate you joining us. And Anna, I'm going to present here for you and turn it back over. Thank you for allowing us to present, Anna. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Matt and Jason. We appreciate you sharing some interesting things about social media and internet safety. So as I mentioned, this is our first webinar in our series, our Smart Senior series. I encourage you all to join us for our next webinar, which will be on October 28th at 2 o'clock, titled Ingredients for a Healthy Life. We'll be looking at our Farm to Table program at Covenant Woods, as well as how living at a place like Covenant Woods can help you have a healthier life. So I encourage you to look for that email and invite in the near future. And just, if you all want to ask any questions about Covenant Woods or think about a visit, we certainly encourage you to do that. And I think Jason has that information on the next slide for us. You can certainly reach us through our website or giving us a call or emailing Brandon Newland at covenantwoods.com. So again, I appreciate your time today. Look forward to seeing you in the future and hope you have a great week.
Thank you,
very
Anna.
much,
Thanks, everyone.
Hang on, Anna.
Sorry, so do I leave? What do I do?
Yeah, hold on one second. Okay. So that is so weird. I wonder why we had such low attendance on this one.
I'm sorry to say, I just realized that out of the 8, 4 of them were us.
People that live
Right?
at Covenant Woods?
No, I mean, it said participants 8.
Oh, yeah.
4 of us
Correct.
are on, so that was only 4 people.
Yeah.
Boo.